Welcome, everybody. Welcome to June 2020 Lunch Bunch. We're glad that you're all here and have decided to take some time during lunch to join us, whether or not you've got, food in front of you and having your lunch in front of your computer. I'm Ruth Jones with the Mines Alumni Office, and I'm going to try to serve as moderator of this call today as I continue to learn the fine points of Zoom. And I'm also doing this in conjunction with my wingman, Kelly Spurl from the Alumni Office. So she and I will keep tabs on things, make sure that you're all connected. We'll kind of keep an eye on the time for the agenda. We want to wrap up by 1 o'clock. And of course, we'll both troubleshoot. Kelly will troubleshoot as needed throughout the call to make sure we're all getting what we need. Just a few reminders about how this will run. As we get into the presentation today, make sure, feel free to ask questions as we go. And you can do that simply by clicking on the chat icon on the bottom of your screen. We will monitor those questions as we go. So if we aren't able to answer your question during today's session, we'll certainly get an answer and email it to you following, okay? And another reminder, if any of you happen to be accessing or connecting to this session today via your cell phone, I think we want everybody to be sure you're on mute, okay? Because of background noise and other things. So, okay, I think that's it for the housekeeping. I would now like to turn it over to Stu Bennett, Dr. Stu Bennett. You can see his picture right there. Stu is our interim director of alumni engagement, class of 66. We're so thrilled to have you with us again this month, Stu. And I am going to have him, he'll serve as our host today and introduce us to our speaker. Take it away, Stu.
Thank you, Ruth. Class of 66, I'm just glad to be here. So. This is a great event. This is the second of our virtual lunch bunches, and frankly, they've been a lot of fun. We've been able to incorporate multiple speakers as opposed to just maybe one or two, and we've had audiences from around the world. So, if you're able to join us today, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. One of the things we've heard over the years is that there is a shortage of people that are qualified to teach STEM. The world, our country particularly, is hungry for STEM teachers. And who knows that subject better than a Mines graduate? So today, Wendy Adams, who is the director of TeachMines, and she's on the research faculty in the physics department. She's a fellow of the American Physical Society and was awarded an APS 2018 Excellence in Physics Education Research Award. She leads the project here at Mines it's called TeachMines, and it offers courses, advising, and certification pathways to help our Mines undergraduates, graduates, and alumni explore the teaching profession. And today she's going to be giving some details of how that works. TeachMines has become a national leader of STEM education and teacher recruitment to get the facts out. And then we've been the recipient of $5.5 million in external funding in learning how to teach K through 12. It's a wonderful career opportunity for our students. Just as a sideline, her son Alex is a recent graduate in economics 2020. Joining her today will also be Taylor Plant, who is a Mines undergrad and is going into the teaching profession, and Eric Norfleet, who, as I understand, is a chemistry graduate student, and he's planning to join middle school faculty. So I'd like to, as part of my introductory remarks before I bring in Wendy, encourage all of you that are listening to continue to participate through the school as alumni, and those of you that are considering the profession, recruit and talk to your other students, your fellow students, and recruit the people that you do know that are alums to help you in your career path. Um, and it's a wonderful profession. I'm glad to see so many interested in this. So that's enough introduction. But Wendy, I'd like you and your team to tell us a little bit about the program here at Mines.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for that nice introduction. And I'll give you just a quick outline of what we're going to talk to you about today. So we're actually going to give you a quick little pre-test to start with. And then we're going to talk to you about the teaching profession, which we see as the best kept secret out there. And then we'll give you a post-test. And this is a short version of the teaching profession, so you don't feel like you're going to get 100% on the post-test, because we're not going to actually be able to cover quite everything for you to be able to do that. And then we'll share with you some about the past, present, and future of TeachMines. And Eric and Taylor are going to help me, since Taylor is a practicing teacher now, and he started at Mines as an undergrad, but now he's a teacher. And then Eric just has been able to take advantage of the offerings at TeachMines and getting ready to embark on his career as a teacher. So feel free to ask questions at any point. We don't want you to hold off. We're going to try to make this interactive if we can. It's online, but we're still going to try to do that. So to start with, I know it's terrible. I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, to either go to this link, or you can use your phone and the QR code and take this quick pre-test about the teaching profession, so we can get a sense of what you already know about teaching before we jump in. And it gives you an idea of what we're going to share. So if you please don't mind, go to that link or the QR code, and I'll give you just a few minutes to complete the quiz. And when you complete it, if you could throw in the chat that you're done. Yeah, all kinds of people sharing. This is great. Okay, so I haven't heard anyone say to wait, so let's keep going. So we're going to share with you Teaching the Best Kept Secret. This short piece of our presentation is actually part of our big grant that we have with the NSF, and it's a partnership between 4 national societies: the American Physical Society, the American Chemical Society, the Association of Mathematics Teacher Educators, and the American Association of Physics Teachers. And this work started here at Mines, and then we started the partnership with these societies, and we're able to get almost $3 million in funding just for this project. And we're just finishing the 2nd year, and it's we've got 3 more years. It's a national effort to recruit physics, chemistry, and math teachers. And we're doing it by trying to share the facts about the profession. So to start with, Kelly, would you mind throwing up the first poll? What fraction do you think of US students indicate some level of interest when asked, how interested are you in becoming a middle or high school teacher? All right, so it looks like most of you say 10 to 25%. And it turns out that about half of STEM majors, this is a national survey that was done by the American Physical Society panel on public affairs. And they've got data from thousands of students. You can see there's variation. If you're a math major, you're more likely to say you have interest in teaching. Computer science, a little bit less, but it's all still right around 40 to 50% of students have considered the teaching career. So why do we have such massive shortages in physics, chemistry, and math teachers? And our research is saying that it looks like because of misinformation about the profession. People don't have accurate facts about the profession. They don't realize what it's actually like. So 40 to 60%, I would say, is the right answer for this one. So I'm going to ask you to think to yourself, on which step of a ladder would you say you personally feel you stand at this time? So if 0, not even on the ladder, was your worst possible life, and being up at the very top step would be the best possible life, where do you think you stand? And we don't ask people to share this one because it's a pretty personal question. But just to think about it a little bit. And then I'll give you a chance to kind of internalize that. And then there's a national survey that's done by Gallup every year, and some other people use this same survey, and they'll ask where you stand, and then they'll say, on which step do you think you will stand 5 years from now? And then they weight that, more weighting given to where you feel like you stand now. Oh, someone's drawing on the slide, Ella, versus where you think you'll stand in 5 years. And then they divide the ladder up into the top section, the middle, and the bottom section. The bottom is larger. It's not an equally scaled thing. They ignore anybody who chose the middle. And they do this funny thing where they take the percentage of people who chose the top, subtract off the percent who chose the bottom, and they get a number. So where do you think teachers would fall in this rating if you looked at all professions across the US? Any thoughts? Do you think teachers would be at the top, middle, bottom? Well, I'm going to show you. Teachers rate their lives better than all occupation groups, trailing only physicians. So this is the 69% is the number of teachers who rated themselves at the top minus the percent who rated themselves at the bottom. So more than 69% of teachers rated their life at the top of that ladder. So teachers feel have strong well-being. They call this well-being. If you look at people who only have bachelor's degrees, teachers are at the top of this every time they do the survey, no matter what kind of bachelor's degree. But if you do all occupations, physicians will come out ahead. So what do you think teachers, why do you think they rate their lives so highly compared to other professions? There's a lot. If you think about the things you thought about when you were rating yourself, it probably gives you some idea of what's important in your life, what made you feel good about where you are or not good about where you are now. And so I'll let Taylor take over from here. I don't know if...
Yeah. Hi, I'm Taylor Plant.
Oh,
so
and I wasn't supposed to do that part. Eric was supposed to do the other part. I'm going to just shut up for like the next 10 minutes.
hey, you were on a roll. There's no stopping that.
Yeah, I was like, okay, she's got it.
Let it happen. But yeah, so if we're looking at day-to-day satisfaction, I know it's a little bit different for every teacher. I know what makes me enjoy my teaching is different than, even people in my department. But overall, this was a survey done to about 60 different science and math teachers. And so we see a good mix where like the number one reason that teachers generally get satisfaction is students. You're going to be kind of hard pressed to find a teacher that likes teaching but doesn't like students, because that would be a weird dynamic to live in. Work schedule is really nice, right? And kind of the first thing that comes to my mind is like right now, right? I have 2 months off where I can spend time with my 6.5-month-old daughter and just have a lot of fun and really kind of customize my own learning too. And then we see teaching is challenging, scientific, your colleagues, learning content, autonomy of the classroom. All these things come up all the time. I was just part of a summer plan to create a freshman class of physics for all of our freshmen to take, and kind of restructuring our entire science pathway to kind of better meet standards that Colorado has set out. But yeah, there's a lot of day-to-day satisfaction in there. I know for me personally, it's, I went to Mines for a couple years at least, and I was really worried I was going to lose that kind of scientific approach to things, but teaching is wildly more of a science experiment every day than I ever thought possible. And then it changes every year. I'm going into my 5th or 6th year teaching, and I haven't taught the same set of classes ever. So it's always new classes, new students. It's super fun, super, super exciting.
I want you guys to choose what you think the typical starting salary for a K-12 teacher in the Denver area is, and then also answer what you think that same teacher will be making 15 years down the road with a master's degree, which is pretty typical of a 15-year teacher. All right, so it looks like there was a split between people saying that starting teachers make around 32,000 and around 45,000, and a few people answered 52,000. And then if you look at the 15 years down the road, most people thought 80,000. So for the first question, starting teachers do in the Denver area make around 45,000, and that's just with a bachelor's in their first year of teaching. And it varies a little bit depending on the district. So like Westminster has slightly higher starting salaries, Jeffco is on the low end, but 45 is a pretty close number. And then if you account for retirement benefits and the fact that it's only a 9-month job, essentially, you get winter break and the full summer. That actually adjusts to about 60,000 or 67,000 for a full-time year-round job. And then if you look 15 years down the road with a master's, which most 15-year teachers will have their master's by that point, 80,000 is actually the correct average. And again, that fluctuates depending on the district. You can make over 6 figures in Westminster and Boulder Valley, which most people don't think of public school teachers as making 6 figures ever in their career. But in this area, that's definitely possible. And even 80,000, I mean, that's a very, very reasonable 15-year mid-career salary. And then again, if you look at the adjusted salary for a 12-month versus a 9-month job, that 100K comes out to about 133K. So I think that a lot of people just don't understand how teachers are paid. I think I, myself included, before I would have probably guessed 32 instead of 45. But it's actually not the case.
So this one is just some recent data from the summer 2019 salary survey from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And the American Institute of Physics pays to reprint this because otherwise you pay a lot of money to get this data. And they just posted this 2018 salary data, and it shows a range of degrees. These are bachelor's degrees, and what their starting salaries look like. So this is the 25th to 75th percentile. And then I just threw Denver Public Schools up there, and I covered up architecture. So I hope you didn't want to see architecture, but I wanted a place to squeeze in schools. To give you a sense, and that range for Denver Public Schools is the starting pay, plus I added on at Denver Public Schools, you can get paid extra depending on which school you're working at. If it's a Title I school, depending on the population of students you have, they have various ways that you can add $2,000 or $1,500 to your salary. And they are very clear about that. They want you to know that it could range. So you could start with a base salary of 58 in Denver Public Schools, plus then if you were a coach or sponsored a club or something like that, or you did some after school tutoring, or you took over a colleague's class here and there, you get additional pay. All those things that university faculty do as service that they're expected to do as part of their job, there's a salary schedule for how much you get paid if you're a K-12 teacher when you do those things. So very few teachers have just that base pay that you saw on the last slide. They usually also have additional pay for any additional duties that they choose to do. But those additional duties are almost always voluntary, so it's not, Taylor can speak to this or not. I don't think it's ever really forced on anybody. They're just asked to help out.
Yeah, I've never heard of like part of your job position being tied to like coaching tennis or something. It's always a bonus with a separate paycheck that comes with it.
I have
added to your paycheck.
I can just ask real quick while it's on my mind, and I see a question from Brianne too, about salary calculations and, you know, how much do these salary calculations consider how much money teachers are spending of their own? You know, I have friends who teach who they don't get a lot of extra money to buy supplies and things for their classrooms, you know, kind of the here and now. But then I also wonder overall, do school districts support their teachers in their education? For example, what might they pay to help you get a master's degree and, you know, advance your career? Or is that not something that school districts do? Does it depend on the district? So
it depends on the district. Some districts do support continuing education, some don't. The state supports it. There are state grants through the Colorado Department of Education that support earning math, especially if it's so that you can teach concurrent enrollment, which means you're teaching a class that earns college credit. So there are grants in the state for that, especially in high needs areas like STEM. There's also lots of other financial benefits like student loan forgiveness and things like that. There's teach grants that are a federal thing that support you going on to get an advanced degree. So there are lots of options like that. Taylor, do you want to talk at all about whether you know if teachers spend money out of pocket?
Yeah, I mean, and of course you end up spending some money out of pocket, and some teachers, like my wife is a second grade teacher, and she just ends up spending more out of pocket than I typically do. In my high school, we have a department budget, which is pretty standard for science departments to have their own separate budget. So that a lot of our materials and supplies comes out of that. I still will spend a good chunk of money just on notebooks and stuff like that. My school is kind of a very large range of like socioeconomic backgrounds and stuff. And I typically have classes, we call them sheltered classes or whatever, but it's classes for newcomers to the country. So as they're learning English, teach it. And so I typically get a lot of materials in them. So it's just one less thing for them to stress about. But if we're talking about a big lump sum of money, you know, it's not enough to really change that salary number. And if it is a big amount, you can write it off on your taxes, I guess, which is kind of nice. But it is something that factors in, right? We do spend money on our own classrooms, and it happens. But I don't think, you know, at least in my experience, I can't speak broadly, but in my experience, it hasn't been a big enough chunk of money that hasn't made it worth it. You know, I've had to worry too much about everything else.
Are you talking hundreds or are you talking thousands?
Oh, way less than 1,000. You know, I think between me and my wife, maybe like $400 a year, where she spends 300 of it on second grade decorations, which is fine. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. And those level of kids need a little bit more kind of help with that kind of stuff. But yeah, and you know, and then everything else for me is covered through my department budget. We have a pretty easy way. Like if I want to run a lab, I take the purchase card and go do it. Works out. Which I guess that kind of brings us up to some student loan forgiveness. And I guess before I hop on there, I also saw, Brianne, you asked about charter schools. And I don't know any data nationwide for charter schools, but you know, for Greeley, which is where I teach specifically, charter schools make about $10,000 less than public school teachers. My sister is just going through the process of applying to be a teacher too, and she was kind of shocked by that, how much less our charter schools. And that might not be across the board, and that's definitely dependent on the school, but it might not be as concrete as like one is better than the other or makes more, however you want to look at it. Loan forgiveness. This is something that's kind of big on my mind because I'm entering my 5th year of teaching. So after this year, I will be eligible for this loan forgiveness because my school is a low income school. So any direct or FFEL, which I think are the educational loans, are eligible for this loan forgiveness if you are a math or science teacher. And really all teachers can get some chunk of change, but the number you see here, the $17,500, is for, I think, special ed, math, and science teachers. It's the high needs teachers. You have to teach 5 years consecutively in a low income school, and then you can apply and get whatever the balance is, up to $17,500 on your loans forgiven. And that was, you know, coming from Mines, it's not the cheapest school around. And so my girlfriend, who's my wife now, we had that discussion of like, if we're both on teacher salaries, is a career switch like this something that's maintainable? And it definitely, I mean, even without the loan forgiveness, it's been maintainable. And then that's just a bonus cherry on the top. There's also Perkins loans, which I don't think are funded anymore. But they had this way of dialing back like a percentage of forgiveness every year. And so you're paying less and less until your 5th year, it was completely forgiven. There's also like the government service 10-year ones, which not a lot of teachers do that I know. I know a lot of counselors do because their loans typically are much larger. So the 10-year chunk makes a little more sense. But that's a complete forgiveness. Doesn't matter what the total is, it gets wiped away. So there's lots of loan and grant options out there. There's money out there for teachers. It's just kind of, you got to know about it. It's hard it's hard to hear about this information if people aren't telling you about it. So this is a big thing that I think about a lot lately now that I just had, my daughter was born 6.5 months ago. And so me and my wife have been doing a lot of thinking about retirement and what that looks like and preparing a good life for our daughter. And so this big idea, right? Did you know most teachers have better retirement benefits than other jobs you can get with the same degree? I actually did a stint with Wendy teaching at UNC, and it was kind of amazing how much better my retirement was just from switching from being an adjunct professor to a public school teacher. And my salary was massively, like it was crazy how much different it is from college. So the typical way that PARO works, which is Colorado's way of retirement, is you pay a small percentage in, or I don't think I pay any in. I think my school pays in, and then PARA matches it. And so if you start teaching at 22, you can have full retirement benefits at age 57. And so that includes 87.5% of your highest annual income for the rest of your life, so a pension, which does increase with inflation. I had a biology teacher at my school that taught for 30 years there and retired 3 years ago, and she's making more this year than she's ever made teaching, just because of that increase from whatever. So it's really, and then that's without doing the tutoring and she just teaches at schools she likes now as a sub when she gets bored. So it works out pretty well for her. Has this yearly annuity value of $21,600. So if you were in industry, you'd have to, match this amount about 7% to have the same available retirement as a teacher's pension, based off average life expectancy and all of that. And that's, and this might be, again, kind of personal to the teachers I know, but I don't put any money into para. Like, I'm not choosing an amount to put in necessarily, but I also have a secondary retirement that I put money into. And so I'll have my para retirement and like a Roth IRA or something that pretty easily manageable to, I call it my Corvette fund for when I retire. I get my fun car. But yeah, so it's really, really good retirement benefits that you can't really go wrong with. Maybe kids just drive you crazy by the time you're 57, but I've ran into very few teachers that retire exactly at 57. Most of them are going until, 65, 68, 70, where they're just ready to move on to something else. It's a hard thing to give up once you get hooked.
All right, so that was our short version of sharing some facts about the profession. So if you wouldn't mind going back to your survey and answering the questions again, you notice there are some questions we didn't address. So just do your best on those. And we can always answer them during the question and answer period or in the chat or something if they're burning on your mind. So I'll give you a few minutes to answer those, and then we'll tell you more about TeachMines.
I guess while you guys do that, I'm looking in the chat. Matthew brought up a good point about getting your national board certification as a teacher. You can make more money. I know in my school district, they don't offer more money. I know in Fort Collins, they will pay half of what it costs to get your national board certificate. And then you make about $5,000 extra a year just for having it. So there's lots of ways to round all of these numbers out. I'm a junior class sponsor for student council, which essentially means I show up to lunch on Tuesdays and go to dances.
Is the national board certification just for US citizens?
That is a really good question. I have no idea.
I don't know that there is. We had a student ask if they could get licensed if they weren't a US citizen. And we checked with the state, and the state said that wasn't a requirement. But I know for the University of Northern Colorado, for their teacher prep program, it was a requirement for some reason associated with the university, not with the state. So I know you can teach without being a US citizen. I don't know if national board certification has any requirements related to that.
The process is kind of like just like doing it's almost like a post-undergraduate. It's like a really short master's type thing. So I'd assume that, they're not going to turn people down from paying money for it.
Someone said she had to put in her social security number, she thinks, in her profile.
Ooh, that might be.
But if you're working as a teacher, you have to have a social security number. I think you can get a social security number without being a US citizen. This is like way past my expertise, but you can work if you have a work visa. Yeah, someone put ITIN. I don't know what that stands for. Is that like a social security number if you're if you're on a working visa or something? When you're done with your post quiz, if you could put done in the chat, that'd be great too, as we distract you with all this chatting.
I do know there's some requirements for the certification too. You have to teach for 3 or 4 years, something like that.
And do you have to have a degree in your field?
You might just have to have a degree. I don't know if it has to be in the field.
Okay, I see lots of dones. So I think, yep, lots of dones. So I think we'll go ahead and talk about the program. So this is a picture from a student event that we had the day before or the day before, so Thursday and Friday was the last day we had classes in person before coronavirus. So this is a very recent picture. It was a fun event. I was actually in Utah trying to do a site visit for this exact grant, and Eric and other TeachMines people were at this event. So it was very sad I didn't get to go, but I got to see pictures. And so we talked about the facts and talked about anyone who was interested. All these folks here are interested in being teachers. They're all students at Mines now. So that gives you, that's just a fraction of the ones that are interested. So I'll just give you a quick history because Ruth thought it'd be fun to hear about kind of how this came about and the interest at Mines, because Mines clearly doesn't have a college of education. Mines is engineering and science and math. So there's been a lot of interest for a long time. So from 2002 to 2007, folks at Mines were working with people at Colorado Christian to try to put together a teacher prep program. They were trying to do a trade and they struggled with the trade, so that didn't come together. 2008, they worked with Metropolitan State in Denver to build a program, but they built the program, they got it approved at Metro, but then it never went into action. No students were ever allowed to enroll. Then in 2013, I was actually at UNC at the time, and Taylor was there at the time, and we approached Mines and said, what do you think about a partnership to certify teachers? Because we were trying to figure out how to help with that gap of math and science teachers in the state and nationwide. And it actually turned into a program. So in the fall of 2015, the first students enrolled in classes, and we called it Team Up. But in the spring of 2019, we started sunsetting that program. It was a good opportunity for students for several years, but for various administrative partnership reasons, not reasons related to students, it just wasn't a good way to do it. And so that's actually sunsetting. Any students who've taken classes in that program can continue to get their license through UNC. Now, we started an in-house program in 2017, but that's on hold for financial reasons. Courses are developed, but it's stalled at the funding stage. 2018, we built a partnership with the Better Teacher Residency, which is now called the PEBC Teacher Residency. That's an ongoing partnership. Just last year, we built a partnership with Aspire to Teach at UC Denver, and also with Denver School of Science and Technology. And we can tell you more about these if you're interested, but we didn't want to spend too much time on those. But these are all licensing programs through the state that are designed to get people into the classroom and support them as they earn their license, which means you jump in to the hot seat pretty quickly. And so at Mines, we offer preparation so that you're ready to jump into that hot seat, so that you're not just going in cold, because data says that when teachers go in cold, new teachers, they don't stay with the profession. They're just not adequately prepared to handle it. But if you're prepared, it's a great job. And I think it's 79% of secondary teachers are still teaching in their 5th year. So it's high retention. The only profession with higher retention is the health professions. So it's higher retention than engineering even. So Taylor, you've already said a little bit of something about what you do, but maybe a little bit about from Mines to teaching to.
Yeah. So I graduated high school and went straight to school of Mines with an interest in electrical engineering and engineering physics. I was doing like a 5-year program. So to get my bachelor's in engineering physics and a master's in electrical engineering. And pretty quickly I started liking tutoring and like helping other people out way more than I was liking engineering. And I still loved engineering, but when I was like thinking about my future, I was like, man, this would be something much more sustainable for myself. And unfortunately at the time there just wasn't a teaching outlet there. It was kind of like you do your engineering or, you do one of the other majors offered, but teaching was not one of them. So my wife, Heather, this lovely lady up here, had just finished her teaching degree at UNC. And so I transferred to UNC, did my degree in physics, and then got licensed in secondary education, and then I taught for like a semester at UNC as an adjunct professor, and then started teaching at Greeley West High School, where I've been ever since. Started teaching all sorts of classes, but I've landed on AP Physics 1, AP Computer Science Principles, and then I was teaching conceptual chemistry and physics, but that's gone away, and now we have this freshman-oriented physics class that I'll be teaching. So it's been a wild ride, and it's been a lot of fun. It's one of those things where as soon as I got to UNC and I met Wendy and I heard about this program, I was like, this would have been perfect while I was there. I wish I could have stayed there and finished. And, you know, as Mines as a school, it gives you a lot of really unique skill sets and perspectives. And I was bummed that I was missing out on those. But yeah, as far as I see Matthew asking about computer science principles, I love it. And I've never been a big computer science person. I've taken some coding classes at Mines and stuff, but it just kind of came up in my school, and I was like the only teacher that showed interest in it. And so this past year was my first year doing it, and it was amazing. And just to see the creativity that students could put into it, very nice. Comp A. I'm trying to go that route sooner or later. We'll see if my school will let me. Our computer science is under the business world. And so it can get kind of hairy to be a science teacher that also teaches business classes. So yeah, I know it, Fort Collins, they have it under math too, which is kind of interesting. So that's been my quick overall story, I guess, and that I was just a year, 2 years too early to take advantage of all the Mines UNC teacher preparation stuff. But yeah.
So, quickly, I was just going to share with you sort of the impact, some of the numbers on the impact that the program has had. So starting in 2015, we've been helping students become teachers. So we've had 161 Mines students engaged in taking coursework or becoming teachers. My mouse is not working. 196 different middle and high school classrooms have had Mines pre-service teachers in the classrooms helping. And so that means we've worked with, Mines students have worked with almost 9,000 Colorado middle and high school students and put in almost 17,000 hours working with those students. So we're not just talking about going and visiting a classroom once a semester. They're putting in substantial hours, spending time being teachers or assistant teachers in the classroom. So it's had a really big impact on the community, just the beginnings of this program. So this is a really nice way to give back to the community and to have nice connections with the local schools. And it's a great way to recruit students to Mines, give them a sense of what it takes to become a Mines student, and that it's something they can do. You've got a real live Mines student there to tell you, this is what you do, and this is what it would be like if you came to Mines and if you wanted to do science or engineering. And then we also have a group called the DAPT, Denver Area Physics Teachers, and we also have a teacher advisory group, and we've interacted with over 70 STEM teachers in the area with those groups, so we keep good connections with them as well. So so far of these 161 students, you can see they represent, I think, every major now, and plus a lot of graduate students. A really large fraction are in physics, and mechanical engineering is big because mechanical engineering is a giant fraction of the campus of students. But there's so many in physics, I think, because that's where so many of the people who are active in the program. So the physics students very much know about this program. The other majors, a lot of the students don't even know we exist yet. So we're working on getting more integrated so that everybody knows. And I think at that point, our numbers will jump a bunch. And so Stu touched on this in the beginning. I don't want to spend too much time because we're running out of time, but we've gotten grants over the years that have totaled over $5.5 million. And I'm going to just, you can ask about this if you're interested after. So what we do now is we offer field experiences. So that puts a student in the classroom, a Mines student in a classroom, so they can see what it's like to be in the classroom and to be behind the desk rather than being a student. That's important. It's critical if you're going to be a teacher to spend time in a classroom and practice being a teacher. We also have other courses such as science, math, and computer science methods and cognitive psychology to help students get ready to become a teacher. We encourage them to do the field experience multiple times before they go into one of those partnership programs. And then after they earn their degree or have a bachelor's, then they can join one of these 3 programs. And instead of telling you more about those, I'm going to let Eric tell you what he decided, how he's gotten involved.
Hey everybody, yeah, so my name's Eric. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I got my bachelor's in chemistry and then came out here for grad school at Mines with the intent of pursuing a PhD. But I moved out here in June and started working in the lab over the summer, and it didn't take me too long to realize that I wasn't doing what I really want to do. And teaching something I've always been interested in, kind of like Taylor, I tutored all throughout my undergrad, and that was probably my most like fulfilling volunteer experience. And so I started to kind of reconsider what my options were and started to look into the possibility of teaching K through 12 science. So I actually, before I heard about TeachMines, I got in touch with a chemistry teacher at Golden High School and asked if I could just come and participate in his class a little bit. And then pretty soon after that, a friend told me about TeachMines and about some of the work that Dr. Adams does. So I kept that on my radar during first semester, and then second semester I signed up for the K through 12 field experience class. So that's an opportunity for me to take my experience in the class and kind of debunk my experience, kind of discuss the philosophy of why we teach, why it's important, kind of, generate camaraderie with other people who are kind of in a similar situation. So that was a really fantastic experience. And then I also signed up for Dr. Adams' physics teaching techniques course, which was definitely, it changed the course of my life. I learned so much about teaching, and it was all research-based, which as a science-minded person is really important to me, that we're doing things because they're effective and they make sense and they're proven. So I learned a lot about just kind of the psychology of learning, the psychology of teaching, how to be effective. I think one of the things I appreciated the most is we really debunked some of the commonplace practices that aren't actually very effective. So I feel like I have a really good foundation going forward. So through TeachMines, I learned about their partnership with DSST, which is Denver Schools of Science and Technology. It's a public charter district that is STEM oriented, and they offer an apprentice teaching route. And so the whole setup of that is that you are a mentee for a mentor teacher throughout the year, and you transition slowly from observing to full teaching with the intent of being hired on at the start of the next year as a full teacher. And then concurrent with that, I will be pursuing my master's in education through Relay Graduate School of Education, along with my alternative teaching licensure in the state of Colorado for secondary science. So this program is perfect for me and for all other STEM people who are having second thoughts about their path in life and what to teach, because the whole purpose is to take people that are well educated in STEM but don't know anything about education and teach them to teach effectively. And I feel like, especially taking Dr. Adams' course, I am especially well suited for this because I already have that extra little background knowledge that I can build off of going forward and take what I learned in there and apply it to what I learned through Relay and through my experience in the classroom. The school I'm teaching at, I'm really excited about because it's opening on the Anschutz Medical Campus this fall as a 6th and 7th grade center, and it will expand to a full 6th through 12 center. So that will give the students lots of opportunities to collaborate and have internships at the hospital and the campus itself. So we're really looking forward to that. There's a lot of support in this district in terms of professional development and trying to think outside the box in terms of the opportunities we provide the students. And then additionally, they've already included me on some like curriculum planning, taking the next generation science standards and adapting them into concrete assessment standards at each point of their education, from 6th grade first semester to 12th grade last semester. So that's been really exciting. And that pretty much sums up my experience and where I'm at and how TeachMines helped me get here.
Okay, so I want to just wrap up. I was going to tell you that where we're moving to quickly is we're putting together a minor, and there's a new program called the BSE, the Bachelor's of Science and Engineering, and we're creating a STEM education emphasis so that students like Eric, well, Eric's a graduate student, but students who engage at the TeachMines with the TeachMines courses could actually have them earn something that's on their transcript, so they have something they're working towards rather than just being these electives they're taking because of this interest they have. And I think that'll make a big difference in, there's been a lot of chat about getting the word out. It's clear that the whole Mines campus doesn't know about this program, even though we spend most of our time trying to get the word out. But getting as regular programs and in the catalog will make all the difference with that. And then the provost has told us that once we get through the financial challenges presented to us by this year's shutdown, that we'd like to work towards having certification that's actually offered at Mines as part of a student's degree. So that's sort of where we're headed this next year. Big stuff, getting into the catalog and helping with more awareness. And I'm going to put my email in the chat. Oops, I don't know what happened there. So that folks can get a hold of me if you'd like to. Yeah, we'll let Stu take back over with the few minutes we have left for questions and answers.
I just was looking at time, and actually this was very interesting. And you three are all great ambassadors for the profession. One of your really early questions was talking about preconceptions of the teaching profession. And I would suggest that one of the preconceptions most of us have comes from the negative responses we get from teachers. Teachers badmouth their own profession pretty badly, and at least as my observation generally. And I think the message that you have to give probably would be a good lesson for the people that exist in the teaching profession, so they understand really where they do stand in comparison to other professions and other opportunities. This is a great presentation. I'd like to see you expand it into your own profession a little bit. Thanks so much to all of you. Wendy, thank you for sharing your email to everybody. I think in the interest of time, we can stay here, but if people have to go and they have questions, please submit those. I think this is a wonderful program. Congratulations to you two students for choosing that. I think it's a great fit, and I think you've done a wonderful job of explaining it. So thank you to Wendy and Taylor and Eric for your presentation. I'd also like to thank Ruth and Kelly for organizing this and moderating it, and to all of you who were able to participate and submitted such interesting questions and chats. I'm going to turn this back to Ruth to finish it out if you care to, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Ditto what Stu said. I wanted to just make note, Kelly mentioned it in the chat here, but we'll send out a follow-up email to everyone on the call today. We'd love to hear your feedback about today's session and hear your thoughts about future programs. If you have ideas for speakers that you'd like to hear from Mines, we'd love to feature them on our lunch bunch every month. And with that, so watch for that email coming tomorrow. In addition, I wanted to also let everybody know that next month, our speaker is Coach Greg Brandon, head football coach. He'll be speaking to us on July 16th, if I've got my date right. Yes, I do, 12 noon. So watch for that email coming out. It'll be in the alumni e-newsletter. And of course, it's always posted on the website, the alumni website, weare.mines.edu. And if you click on events, you can pull up Lunch Bunch and see who the speakers are coming up. We've got some pretty exciting folks in store. So as I said, next month is Coach Greg Brandon. A lot of people are asking about football. What's going on in the fall? We're going to have are we going to have games? Are there going to be any spectators? What's happening with fall sports in general? So he's going to give us a good picture of what's going to be happening. So hope you can join us. Are there any other questions or comments for the good of the order before we sign off? Anybody? You're all muted, so I can't hear you if you do. Just nod and say, yes, Ruth, this is good. Yay! I'm so excited we have you from Oman. That is the coolest thing ever. It's time for you to go to bed, my friend. It's 11 o'clock where you are. Am I right? Anyway,
I have a question.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, and we hope to see you next month. Thanks,
Ruth, I think somebody was trying to ask a question there.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sure, go ahead.
I do have a question. I'm a STEM teacher. I actually just got my CTE cert. I have a math degree, or I have a petroleum engineering from Mines, and then a master's in teaching from University of Portland. And I taught math for many years, and then I started teaching computer science, robotics, engineering, all this cool stuff. But I didn't hear much about CTE, and that's a huge way to get into education for a lot of people that are in, I would think, our style, and you could teach chemistry, physics, engineering. And so I was just wondering if you guys have looked into the CTE side of things versus this mainstream education side.
I've only talked to the state a little bit about it. I think that if I'm understanding it right, and you can tell me more, that's for somebody who is a working professional and who wants to come in and teach a class or two in a high school. That's how it was presented to me. Or are you thinking of something different than
so
that?
there's two ways to get certified so CTE stands for Career Technical Education. There's two ways to get certified. My way was actually through the industry way. I mean, even though I had a math certificate, I couldn't just apply it to CTE. I actually had to use my industry time. So you have to have a certain number of hours per industry. And then I had to take classes. So I had to go take more teaching classes on CTE history, law, stuff like that. So I spent 2 summers taking more college classes. But the CTE is not, most people teach full time. It's not just 1 or 2 classes, but it's more of a, in our state, well, all across the country, they get more money per classroom. So I get an extended contract to work on my lab, stuff like that. And then also you get more money per student from the state. And so you're able to pay for materials, extra costs. So like we have, I think 14 3D printers at our school now, and laser cutter and all this cool machinery to teach more STEM stuff. And CTE career, it's a different part of the pool than general ed, but it's something that is really important because it teaches every unit or every class in CTE, you have to have a career lesson, a career unit. And I think that's where Minds students would really excel, is that we know so much about different careers rather than if you go through an education program, knowing this. I mean, my wife's education, my sister, my brother, my sister, 2 sister-in-laws and my brother and my parents are all teachers. They didn't have the industry background. They didn't have to understand other careers as much as mine students do. So I think that's a really benefit for that. So.
Yeah, I think we haven't really done a lot with it because we thought it took, because of the industry experience that was required. So it wouldn't work for the current students, but it's a great option for alumni. How much industry experience did you need? How much time did you need?
So it depends on the job. So in our state in Washington, they accept math teaching as industry hours.
Okay.
And then I used all my internship hours also. And then we also have really cool things called externships in our state, where they give grant money to teachers to go work during the summer, and you count and that you work for a company. So I worked for a company that made electric skateboards a couple years ago, and the school district paid me to work for the company, and those hours counted towards my certificate. And so I was able to get so my certificate in STEM is very broad, and Taylor's got this idea. Computer science is in the business program, so you can't really teach computer science unless you have a business background. But with STEM, you can get a business background if you have the right contact hours. And so it's one of those. It's you have to work with the system, but it's I think School of Mines gives us such a broad background, and I was a petroleum engineering major, so I mean it's interesting to see how much different I approach teaching than the average teacher I talk to. So now there is a CTE that's like directly you go to college to get to. My teaching partner, he went to Eastern Oregon University, and he has a degree in STEM teaching. in CTE teaching, sorry, K-12. So.
Well, I'll definitely put more effort into talking to the state and seeing if we can make it into a path for our students. Because since we're working this next year on making the minor and the BSE, this is the perfect time to see if we should be doing this.
It's the way to go. I mean, it gives the teachers like Taylor could probably go get his endorsement like that, and it would give you let you branch into that other section so quickly. I don't know. It's a pretty cool thing. It was an eye opener. I got asked to do it back in 2012 and I didn't. And then in 2014, I kind of got recruited. You're going to do this now. So it was,
and a couple of our teacher advisory group members have mentioned this. And then as soon as we saw the industry experience, we quit following up on it. But now you've got me motivated to work harder on this.
and then also,
With
yeah, go
that,
ahead.
if we can, we'd love to have you back to give us an update on all this, maybe in a year, to see where we are with all of this. And
Oh, I'd
sure.
love to talk to you guys.
and all
That'd
the
be great.
development program, it's wonderful. So I hope you'll do that.
I'd love to get involved. I come back to campus as often as I can. Long ways away, but I wrestled down there, so I'm in touch with Dan Lewis a lot, and so.
Oh, great. Yeah.
But I will shout out this. I have a student that is a football player that signed with Mines. He's going to be a freshman this fall.
Wow.
And I was like, you have to. He's a straight A student, super engineering guy. And I said, have you looked at going to school Mines? And he's like, no, I don't even know what you're talking. You know, he goes, I don't want to go there. And so then I made him look it up, and he got recruited and he's got a scholarship there now. It's kind of cool. So.
And this is why we need Minds grads to become teachers, because they will send us the best students.
It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody again for your time. So glad you could join us today, and we hope to see you next month. Thanks
Yeah.
again.
Thank you for having us, Ruth. We really appreciate it. And it was really great meeting all of you. And I'm really excited to see how many teachers there are in this. We'll have to get your emails from Ruth and keep you on our list so that you can stay updated on the things that we're doing.
Absolutely.
So it was nice meeting you all.
Good. Thanks all. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.